It is the 41st millennium. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods, and master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day, so that he may never truly die. Yet, even in his deathless state, the Emperor continues his eternal vigilance. Mighty battlefields across the demon-infested miasma of the warp, the only route between distant stars, their way lit by the Astronomicon, the psychic manifestation of the Emperor's will. Vast armies give battle in his name on these unaccounted worlds. Greatest among his soldiers are the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, bioengineered super warriors. Their comrades in armies and legions are the Imperial Guard and the countless planetary defense forces, the ever-vigilant Mechanicus, to name only a few. But for all their multitudes, they barely enough hold off the ever-present threat from aliens, heretics, mutants, and worse. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding. There is no peace amongst the stars. Only an eternity of carnage and slaughter and laughter of thirsting gods. Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. I am going to introduce in my book review series a series that has enthralled me for years. I am a huge fan of the Warhammer universe. If you are unfamiliar with Warhammer, it is actually a tabletop game. It's one where you collect the figurines unpainted and not put together. You put them together, build your army according to the rules of the different codex that are out there for the type of army you want to play. You find a group of friends who have the same interest. You build a place to play, roll the dice, and have a great time making a mock war together. Now, here's what's really cool about this tabletop game universe, which I played when I was younger, but homegirl's good and grown now and just really doesn't have the time to sit around painting these itsy bitsy figures and making them perfect. I do still have time to read, though. With this tabletop universe produced by the Games Workshop, there is a partner company called the Black Library. The Black Library is the publishing arm of Games Workshop. They have created an entire universe behind this tabletop game, and also it's a video game series as well. It's a real-time strategy series, ton of fun, highly recommend it if you've got the time. Those of us who work, not as much anymore. I was first introduced to this world of science fiction and military science fiction when I was a senior in high school. A good friend of mine was really into it. I had never heard of it, and they lent me one of the books, Eisenhorn, that I still have many years later. The world in these books has established rules. It is set 40,000 years in the future of Earth. During this time, the Emperor of Mankind arose amongst all men, and human beings initially saw him as something like the greatest father of science in the universe, the mightiest warrior, the bravest fighter, the most charismatic diplomat, things like that. Well, eventually the Emperor Man goes from just being some dude to ruling the planet, which is called Terra in the future. There is no Earth, it is Terra. Well, he expands his empire. He builds an imperial army and starts taking back worlds that once belonged to humans. Or if he finds a world that has humans on it, but there are alien species in the future referred to as Xenos, if there are Xenos species on the world, he expels them from the world, kills them, and brings the world into imperial compliance under himself, the Emperor of Mankind. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. In the Emperor's endeavors to take over the known universe, basically, he needed help doing that. I mean, he's just one guy with, I don't know, billions of humans on Earth at his disposal. That's not quite enough to accomplish the goal. So the Emperor was also a great scientist. He extracted his own DNA and took particular qualities and disseminated those into 20 gene sons. And they're called gene sons because he didn't give birth to them with a woman. No, these are lab-grown babies that he decided were going to be his perfect offspring to lead his armies of space marines. And these 20 perfect sons were called the Primarchs. The Primarchs were also seen as gods among men. They were the tallest, most well-spoken. Obviously, they were going to be handsome, but most of all, they were warriors. They were gifted in the art of politics and war beyond anything. As the Emperor in his laboratory is growing his gene sons, catastrophe strikes. Trying to fight the universe to regain humanity is no easy feat. And there is a negative force in the universe that counteracts everything the Emperor is trying to do. And that is chaos, the denizens of the warp. Chaos is the opposite of the known physical universe. It is a realm where gods of desire, of decay, of excess dwell. And those gods see humanity as a threat to their very being, because the Emperor of Mankind is so powerful and so capable, they know that anything he produces could potentially unseat them from their chaotic thrones. Now, humans don't necessarily come in contact with chaos and the warp very often. You need special spacefaring equipment for that to happen. You need the light of the Astronomicon to guide you from one side of the universe to another, from one side of the galaxy to another safely, because the warp is no place for civilized people. It is a place of carnage and chaos where your greatest nightmares will come true and engulf you if you are not wary of where you are. This warp, these chaos legions, they invade the Emperor's secret laboratories where he is growing his gene sons, the Primarchs, and they scatter the Primarchs across the galaxy, separated from their father. And the Primarchs grow up on human worlds, and they are raised in the customs and traditions of those worlds, grow to love those worlds, and represent what those worlds are. There are worlds where it's highly industrialized, so they come up being great builders of machinery and valuing having so much work at their disposal in terms of millions of people to build a project. There are worlds that are feral, that are icy, where they have to fight the elements and Xenos in order to live. So you have a Primarch who becomes the strongest among literal wolves of mankind. The Primarchs are so special that they stand out from the rest of humanity. Now, eventually, the Emperor mounts a campaign to reclaim his sons, and he goes across the universe searching for what was taken from him. As he finds his sons, he reunites them with the gene armies he created from the gene seed of his gene sons. So now each Primarch has at their disposal a legion of warriors that is like them, thinks like them, lusts for war like them, and is loyal to their Primarch. above all. The emperor recovers his sons and wages war across the galaxy. The greatest of the emperor's sons was Horus. At the height of the campaign to reclaim the galaxy in the name of Terra and the emperor leaves the battlefield in space and returns to Terra to complete some important work, but does not tell his sons what it is he is doing. As children are wont to do when the parents are away and don't give any explanations, they made it up what they thought the emperor was doing. That was my doggy. Some had full loyalty to the emperor and unquestioningly followed his orders, and others became suspicious. And in that suspicion, Chaos saw an opportunity. The denizens of Chaos reached out through the warp to the Primarchs and were able to corrupt half of them to the side of Chaos, throwing the galaxy into an unending war state. That war was called the Horus Heresy. The first known of the Emperor's sons to fall to Chaos was Horus, his greatest son, this greatest legion, and his greatest warrior, turned against his father and brought war to Terra. It was only when the Emperor witnessed his favorite son break the back of another son that the Emperor deemed it necessary to take the life of Horus. And he did so. But the power it took to destroy a Primarch utterly destroyed the Emperor's body. So the carcass that is the Emperor was entombed on a golden throne where thousands upon thousands of psychers are sacrificed every day so that their abilities can feed the spirit of the Emperor. Because without the Emperor, there can be no conquest of the galaxy, because it is his light from the golden throne on Terra that guides humanity safely through the warp and beyond the reach of Chaos. And that is the world we find ourselves in. The book that I borrowed so many years ago in high school that got me into the Warhammer universe is this one, Eisenhorn. Eisenhorn is the story of one of the greatest inquisitors. The Inquisition was founded after the Horus Heresy to help root out the Xenos, the alien, the Hereticus, the heretic that doesn't believe the Emperor is truly God, and then also the Malleus, anything that stands against humanity. Eisenhorn, being an inquisitor, has an incredible life. He is privy to many things. His adventures are expansive. And as you go along with Eisenhorn on his adventures, you learn so much about this world. Like most of the Inquisitors, Grigor Eisenhorn was taken from his home as a small child. The same thing happens with the Space Marines. You cannot implant the gene seed necessary into a human host to become a Space Marine unless the body is young and can take the pain of morphing into something else. Same with the Inquisitors. It is a highly specialized group, and the orders will choose the youngsters from different planets that they will bring to their citadels and temples in order to train them. Now, to become an Inquisitor is a very high-ranking and trusted position within the Imperium because they are granted access to secrets that regular humans have no idea are out there. They understand things like the hierarchy of demons within the warp. They understand some of the great secrets that have been kept since the beginning of the Imperium. They have access to call upon chaotic powers themselves. Many of them are great psychers in their own right and can command powers that would cause most people to tremble. And Eisenhorn is one of them. Now, I guess this is the part where I give you a spoiler warning. Here's the book. It's an omnibus. There's 3 novels in here. I love an omnibus because then I don't have to go out and buy another book. But I guess spoiler warning for all of that. I've read this probably 4 times since I've had it in completion. And the story of Eisenhorn I find fascinating every single time because each story of him takes him into conflict with different portions of the Imperium, and not just the Imperium, but the Inquisition that he belongs to. We first find Eisenhorn in this omnibus on a planet trying to protect its citizens. The citizenry hibernates for a good portion of their lunar year because it's too cold on the surface for them to live. And then when the weather is optimal, they are awoken. Well, someone, chaos, someone is trying to waken the citizens early. And if they were to do that, it would kill them. So Eisenhorn's task when we find him is chasing down whoever it is, trying to cause harm to one of the Emperor's worlds, because these are citizens of the Imperium, and he, along with the Astartes, the novels take a very interesting order. Because we're following Eisenhorn's adventures as an Inquisitor, and not just his adventures, transformation in thought towards the Imperium and the Emperor. There's a very specific order the books take. The first is Ordos Xenos, which is the order that Eisenhorn himself is a part of. He is tasked with rooting out aliens, Xenos, that would threaten humanity. And because he is an Inquisitor, he has privileges that other human beings do not have. He wears a rosette that signifies his position in the Imperium. And when he needs information, when he needs services, when he needs goods, they are to be given to him without question so that he can do the work of the Emperor. In the process of rooting out Xenos in the first book, he is exposed to a demon. Now, that's bad. That's really bad because the demon knows who Eisenhorn is. And in the world of 40K, to control a demon of chaos, you have to know their name. But if you know their name and you speak it to the demon, that kind of creates a pact between the human and the demon. And that's heresy in the Warhammer universe. There is nothing more heretical than turning against the God of mankind and pledging any part of one's being, soul, mind to chaos. Well, with that explanation, I guess you kind of figure what happens. In the name of protecting humanity to control this demon, Eisenhorn does the deed. And he has control of the demon. And he actually uses it as a weapon several times throughout the omnibus. But when he does that, he exposes himself to the rest of the Inquisition. The Inquisition are supposed to be the purest citizens of the Imperium, those who hold in highest regard following the laws, religion, and order of the worship of the Emperor entombed on the Golden Throne. And anything that's in opposition to that, even themselves, must be hunted down and destroyed. Then we move through Ordos Malleus, where we find Eisenhorn trying to chase down other humans who are opposing the Emperor. But we know that Eisenhorn has tread on water where he never should have. And towards the end of Ordos Malleus, he exposes himself to the Inquisition. Then in Ordos Hereticus, the Inquisition turns on Eisenhorn, and they hunt him as a heretic once they learn that he has a pact with a demon and some other deeds he has committed in the name of the Imperium of Man. This is a complicated book, and I'm just introducing it today because I do want to do a thorough analysis of it, and it's an excuse to read it again because it's so good. But I want to introduce you to the Warhammer universe. There are two sides of the universe that are explored through the Black Library Publishing House. One that most are familiar with is Warhammer 40K. Warhammer 40K is the world that exists after the Emperor is entombed on the Golden Throne. Warhammer is the world that exists before that happens. So that is the world of the Horus Heresy, and there are other novels in that time. There are many races that exist within the galaxy, some human, some Xenos, some Chaos. And you are introduced to all of these different characters through the novelization. What's really interesting about this novella series is it's all created by different authors. There are rules of the universe, and they all understand and apply those rules. And even though every book is written by a different person, it's a coherent story from end to end. A very popular series within Warhammer is the Horus Heresy series. It started with 3 novels to tell the story of how the Emperor's favorite son fell to chaos and the war that ensued. And it was supposed to stop there, but it was so loved that they just kept going. I don't know how many books it has now. I've bought so many, and I've switched to, the audio books now because homegirl works. So there's nothing like an audio book when you're out walking the dog. But highly recommend it. If you're not a reader, the narrators they get for these books are absolutely amazing. You just really get that visceral war feel. And they even have some that are dramatized. So it's like you're listening to an old radio play. One of my favorite authors, and probably because this was the first of these novels I read, is Dan Abnett. He wrote Eisenhorn, and personally, I think he's the best author out of the Black Library. So any of the books that he writes, I am 100% going to devour. There are books about other inquisitors like Ravenor. He's a very famous inquisitor. There are books about the different legions under the Primarchs. There are books focusing on the different alien species out there. Another character that I love very much is John Grammaticus. He is what's called a perpetual, and he shows up in many different books because perpetual means he doesn't die. One version of his body will pass away, and then he is born into a new life and starts a whole other adventure somewhere else. These books are absolutely amazing, and they're very well written, and they're great for adults. A lot of times when reading science fiction or fantasy novels, it feels like it was written for a kid, which that's fine. Like what you like. I mean, I've got a lot to read back here. But what I really respect about the authors of this series is that they respect their audience. If you're going to go for some escapism into a novel, this is a really good option. The universe is very well crafted. It's coherent, and honestly, it's believable. And the deeper you go into the lore, the more you want to know about it. There are some great wiki pages out there that give lots of information on the Warhammer universe. And honestly, it's just as interesting as reading the novels. I can get lost in a Warhammer wiki for hours and not realize how much of my life I've lost. So I hope you enjoyed this introduction into Warhammer. I am definitely going to be thoroughly reviewing Eisenhorn, and I will also be reviewing other novels within the Warhammer series. I told you, I'm the well-rounded nerd. I'm going to review all the things nerdy that I love, and hopefully you will find interest in them as well. Now, I'm kind of new at this, so I don't have an outro yet, but I do hope that you like, comment, and subscribe, and we can talk about Eisenhorn and Warhammer in the comments.